Gunsmoke brought audiences to the dusty Dodge City with life-or-death battles and dramatic twists for 20 years. But behind that spotlight, the real lives of its cast hid countless tragedies. From the violent death of Charles Wagenheim, beaten to death in his own apartment, to Amanda Blake, passing away from AIDS in secret. These heartbreaking stories, along with bad habits and cruel twists of fate, will keep you glued to the screen. What led them to suffer such painful destinies? Let's explore with us and pay tribute to the legacies they left behind. Let's get started. James Arnes as Matt Dillon. James Arnes, born James King Arnes, was born on May 26, 1923, in Minneapolis. When he was 32 years old, he took on the role of Marshal Matt Dillon in the series Gunsmoke in 1955. With his towering build, stern face, and deep voice, he portrayed a brave, upright Dillon who brought justice to the dangerous town of Dodge City. Arnes solidified an unshakable status over 5 decades. But behind the spotlight, James Arnes's life held no shortage of darkness. A World War II veteran, he had once landed at Anzio and suffered a serious wound to his right leg, carrying that dull pain for the rest of his life. Every step could sting, especially when he had to ride horses or stand for long periods on set, yet he gritted his teeth to finish the scenes. That torment grew worse as family losses kept piling on. His first marriage to Virginia Chapman fell apart in 1960, leaving a deep emotional wound, and in 1975, his daughter Jenny Lee took her own life with an overdose, plunging Arnes into crisis. Just 2 years later, Virginia also died tragically from an accidental overdose, as if tragedy refused to let him go. Through long, lonely nights, he still carried the guilt of a powerless father, combined with lingering physical pain, which pushed his spirit into repeated crises. Yet he tried to stay strong, quiet, and avoid attention so he could keep acting. James Arnes passed away on June 3, 2011, at 88 years old, resting peacefully in Brentwood, Los Angeles, after his health gradually declined with age. The fortune he left behind, around $8 million USD, came largely from his legendary role in Gunsmoke and other Western films, reflecting a glorious but also difficult career. Amanda Blake as Kitty Russell. Amanda Blake, born Beverly Louise Neal, was born on February 20, 1929, in Buffalo, New York. When she was 26 years old, she began playing Miss Kitty Russell, the strong and charming owner of the Long Branch Saloon, in Gunsmoke in 1955. Kitty, with her red hair and a loving yet burdened heart, became an indispensable icon of Dodge City for 19 years, leaving a deep mark on American television audiences. Her real life, in contrast to her glamorous on-screen image, was filled with turmoil. A heavy smoker, Blake was diagnosed with oral cancer in 1977 and had to undergo surgery, after which she became a spokesperson for the American Cancer Society. In addition, her married life was turbulent, with 5 marriages that all failed to last, including her 5th husband, Mark Spaeth, who died of AIDS-related pneumonia in 1985, leaving painful questions about the origin of her own later illness. After Gunsmoke, Blake retired to Phoenix, focusing on caring for wildlife. Together with her ex-husband, Frank Gilbert, she helped develop a rare cheetah breeding program in captivity, and also co-founded one of Arizona's largest no-kill animal organizations. She established funds and worked to preserve many endangered species, demonstrating a kind heart and deep passion for nature. On August 16, 1989, Amanda Blake passed away at the age of 60 in Sacramento from hepatitis related to AIDS, a sad ending that was initially mistaken for throat cancer. Her net worth at the time of death was around $1 million USD, mainly from her long acting career and the immortal image of Kitty Russell. Milburn Stone as Doc Adams. Hugh Milburn Stone was born on July 5, 1904, in Burton, Kansas. When he began portraying Doc Galen Adams in Gunsmoke in 1955, he was 51 years old. The role of a gruff but devoted doctor in Dodge City was tied to Milburn Stone for 20 years, giving audiences an image of a Western doctor who was both intelligent and deeply compassionate. He became an irreplaceable pillar of the series and a key part of American television history. Stone's life off-screen was also full of harsh challenges. Coming from a vaudeville theater background, he patiently built up his name through dozens of film roles before arriving at Gunsmoke. The pressure of the long filming schedule, combined with age, caused his health to gradually decline. The worst came in 1971, when Stone had to undergo emergency heart surgery and was forced to take a break from filming for a few months, though he still tried to return to finish the role of Doc until the series ended. In marriage, Stone experienced 2 periods of life together with Jane Garrison, separated by a short divorce, but ultimately they found each other again. His daughter, Shirley, was from his first marriage to Ellen Morrison, who had passed away in 1937. The family upheavals, along with a demanding work schedule, may have silently worn down his health, even though he had no serious addiction or notable scandals. On June 12, 1980, Milburn Stone took his last breath from a heart attack at the age of 75 in La Jolla, California, after many years living with a weak heart. His net worth at the time of his death was estimated at around $2 million USD, reflecting the fruits of his love for the profession and total dedication to American television audiences. Ken Curtis as Festus Hagen. Ken Curtis, born Curtis Wayne Gates, was born on July 2, 1916, in Lamar, Colorado. When he was 48 years old, he took on the role of Festus Hagen in Gunsmoke in 1964. He brought to life a slightly scruffy, humorous deputy with a distinctive country accent, adding authenticity and fun to the series for 11 years. But behind the spotlight, Ken Curtis's life was not as cheerful as it seemed. Born into a sheriff's family in Colorado, his childhood was full of pressure to follow strict discipline, which often left Curtis feeling stifled and lonely. As an adult, he carried a yearning to break free, dropping out of medical school to pursue music and acting, a decision that initially faced harsh opposition from his family, creating a cold distance with his parents for many years. Curtis had 3 marriages, and his love life was a lifelong source of regret. The first 2 marriages quickly fell apart because of busy work schedules, sudden fame, and the stress of filming, which made it impossible for Curtis to keep a stable home. Only when he married Tori Connolly in 1966 did he find some relative peace, though the old emotional wounds still quietly followed him. Festus, a funny yet lonely character, seemed to partly reflect Curtis's real emotions in life. On April 28, 1991, Ken Curtis passed away suddenly from a heart attack in his sleep in Fresno, California, at the age of 74. His net worth at the time of death was estimated at around $1 million USD, mostly from hundreds of Gunsmoke episodes, other Western roles, and a singing career that left a lasting mark. Dennis Weaver as Chester Good. Dennis Weaver was born on June 4, 1924, in Joplin, Missouri. When he began playing Deputy Chester Good in Gunsmoke in 1955, he was just 31 years old. Chester, with his signature limp and loyal heart, became a symbol of American television and helped Weaver win an Emmy Award in 1959. After 9 years in the role, Weaver left Gunsmoke in 1964 with major doubts about the future. He plunged into a series of new roles such as McCloud and Steven Spielberg's Duel to prove his versatility, but the pressure of reinventing his image brought a heavy mental crisis. The fear of failure, of audiences not accepting him, haunted Weaver, leading to many sleepless, stressful nights. Even so, he kept working hard, gradually escaping Chester's shadow to confirm himself as a true star. Weaver's personal life was somewhat warmer as he maintained a long marriage with Jerry Stowell, his childhood friend, and had 3 children. However, he suffered a major shock in 2003 when his daughter-in-law died in the Santa Monica Farmers Market accident, a psychological wound that tormented the family for years. Additionally, he once endured poverty, doing many odd jobs to support his family before becoming famous, building a spirit of resilience and rare determination. In the last years of his life, Weaver poured his energy into environmental protection, founding the Economics Organization and traveling across America to promote sustainable living. But during this same period, he had to fight a long, painful, and exhausting battle with prostate cancer. On February 24, 2006, Dennis Weaver passed away at his home in Ridgway, Colorado, at the age of 81. His net worth at the time of death was estimated at around $3 million USD, mainly from popular film and television projects and a life of tireless artistic dedication. Bert Reynolds as Quint Asper. Bert Reynolds was born on February 11, 1936, in Michigan. When he was 26 years old, he took on the role of Quint Asper in Gunsmoke in 1962. Portraying a strong yet sensitive half-Comanche blacksmith, Reynolds quickly left a mark on the small screen with his rugged, captivating presence. Although he stayed with Gunsmoke for only 3 seasons, the role of Quint opened the doors for him to enter Hollywood, transforming him into a superstar of the 1970s and 1980s. But on the other side of the spotlight, Reynolds' life was filled with tragedy. His failed marriages, most notably the costly and public divorce from Lonnie Anderson, eroded both his spirit and finances. Reynolds once admitted he never truly let go of his feelings for Sally Field, a profound but unfinished love that left him with much regret. Beyond that, the pressure of being a top male star, always having to maintain a masculine image, drove Reynolds to repeatedly collapse under loneliness and psychological crises. Years of non-stop action films also took a heavy toll on Reynolds' body. From a fall on Deliverance to a severe jaw injury in City Heat in 1984, he had to endure a prolonged addiction to painkillers, combined with anxiety and hypoglycemia that further weakened his health. In 2010, he underwent open-heart surgery to save his life, but from then on, his body gradually declined, no longer strong enough to withstand new hardships. In his personal life, Reynolds once owned a huge fortune thanks to record-breaking salaries and investments in theaters and restaurants. However, failed business deals, along with divorce costs and mounting debts, pushed him into bankruptcy in the 1990s. Reynolds was forced to auction off many of his assets, including the famous ranch once used to film Smokey and the Bandit. It was a bitter downfall for a star who had once stood at the top of the world. On September 6, 2018, Bert Reynolds passed away from a heart attack at the age of 82, closing a life full of glory, but also storms. His estimated net worth at the end of his life was only about $5 million USD, a very small figure compared to what he once had, reflecting the harsh price of fame and the deep wounds left throughout a life of many struggles. Morgan Woodward as Bear Sanderson. Thomas Morgan Woodward was born on September 16, 1925, in Fort Worth, Texas. He appeared in Gunsmoke in 1955 when he was just 30 years old, acting in 19 episodes with 16 different characters, the most notable being Bear Sanderson, a violent man but with psychological depth, in the 2-part episode A Game of Death, An Act of Love, 1973. With his commanding build, booming voice, and cold eyes, Morgan became a familiar face of Westerns, specializing in tough, gritty villain roles, bringing an unmistakable fierce edge to Gunsmoke. Off-screen, Morgan's life was also full of turmoil. He went through many unsteady relationships but never married, living single for decades. A terrifying turning point came when he suffered a stroke right on the Gunsmoke set during a physically demanding scene, affecting his speech and forcing the crew to halt filming. Fortunately, he recovered after a few months of physical therapy, but the shock made Morgan more withdrawn, pouring all his energy into acting and avoiding personal relationships. After recovering, Morgan continued acting tirelessly, from Cool Hand Luke, 1967, as Boss Godfrey, the man with no eyes in dark glasses who haunted audiences, to the cunning Marvin Punk Anderson in the Dallas series throughout the 1980s. He also left a powerful mark on Star Trek, playing Dr. Van Gelder, a role so intense that he himself admitted it left him exhausted both physically and mentally. These performances helped cement his image as a symbol of cold, tormented characters with deep internal struggles. Morgan Woodward passed away on February 22, 2019, at 93 years old, with the cause reported as old age and natural illness, closing nearly 70 years of dedication. His remains were buried in California next to family. Morgan's net worth was estimated at about $2 million USD, a worthy result for a life devoted to portraying fierce, brooding, and tragic cowboy figures. Jack Elum as Pierre Audabon. Jack Elum, whose full name was William Scott Elum, was born on November 13, 1920 in Miami, Arizona, and began appearing in Gunsmoke in 1955 when he was 35 years old. With his distinctive misaligned eye from a childhood injury, Elum easily portrayed tough, unpredictable villains, most notably Pierre Audabon, a brutal yet colorful character that audiences both hated and remembered. That unique appearance became a weapon that made him an unforgettable face in classic Western films. Few would guess that Elum's life carried so much bitterness. He lost his mother when he was just 4 years old, grew up with a stepmother, and had to do various odd jobs to help support his family. The greatest tragedy came at age 11, when he was stabbed in the eye with a pencil during a Boy Scout fight, leaving him permanently blind and cross-eyed in one eye, a trauma that haunted him for life. Yet that same strange eye took him to Hollywood. But behind the screen, Jack also suffered pain. His first wife, Jean Hoddart, died of colon cancer after 24 years together, leaving him to raise their child alone before he found some peace with his second wife, Margaret. Elum surprised audiences when he shifted from villain roles to comedy in Support Your Local Sheriff, 1969, and Cannonball Run, 1981, proving he wasn't typecast. However, old age did not spare Jack. In his final years, he had to battle congestive heart failure, with declining health and repeated hospitalizations, yet he still tried to take on small roles to sustain his passion for acting. Even as his body grew tired, his crooked eye remained captivating, becoming an immortal symbol of American cowboy cinema. Jack Elum passed away on October 20, 2003, at the age of 82, at his home in Ashland, Oregon, concluding a life both harsh and glorious. His remains were cremated, with the ashes returned to his family. Jack's net worth at the end of his life was estimated at around $1 million USD, a modest sum, but worthy of someone who made the entire movie world respect and admire him. Roy Barcroft as Roy. Roy Barcroft, whose real name was Howard Harold Ravenscroft, was born on September 7, 1902, in Nebraska. He began appearing in Gunsmoke in 1955, when he was already 53 years old. He often played vicious villains, bringing drama and tension to Dodge City, most memorably with the character Roy in several episodes. Audiences loved him precisely for that trademark evil quality, crafted from his rugged looks and powerful voice. Behind the camera, Roy Barcroft's life was rather turbulent. He had served in World War I at the age of 15, was badly wounded, and afterward drifted through countless jobs, cowboy, sailor, and even musician, before eventually finding his way to the screen. His marriage was relatively peaceful with Vera Thompson from 1932, and they had 2 children together. However, being typecast as a villain caused Barcroft psychological pressure during the later years of his career, especially as the B-Western genre began to decline, pushing him into increasingly smaller supporting roles. Even so, he left his mark in roles like Colonel Jim Logan in Spin and Marty or the Marshal in Oklahoma, 1955, proving the lasting power of a Western icon. Many were surprised to learn that in real life, Roy was known for his gentle nature, a stark contrast to his screen image. A shock came to him in the late 1960s when doctors diagnosed him with kidney cancer, a vicious disease possibly linked to the lifestyle of that era, with heavy smoking and relentless work pressures. Roy Barcroft passed away quietly on November 28, 1969, at a hospital reserved for people in the film industry, at the age of 67. He donated his body to science as a final act of generosity. His net worth at the time of his death was around $500,000 USD, a modest figure compared to the more than 300 films he had appeared in, but a fitting reflection of an artist devoted to living and dying for the love of acting. George Selk as Moss Grimmik. George Selk was born on May 15, 1893, in Lincoln, Nebraska. He began appearing in Gunsmoke in 1955, when he was already 62 years old, playing Moss Grimmik, the keeper of the Dodge City livery stable, a simple character who added realism and everyday life to the Wild West. With his down-to-earth nature, Selk made audiences believe Moss was truly the soul of the town's stables amid all the gunfire. But behind the spotlight, Selk's life was rather quiet and difficult. He spent many years performing in local theater productions, with plays like Pinocchio and Rope, though they did not bring him much fame. His marriage and family life were largely unknown, as he rarely shared anything about his personal world, only that he devoted most of his time to stage and television. Selk's health also declined quickly after leaving Gunsmoke, leading to his final months being filled with illness, though no clear medical records disclosed the exact causes. Apart from Gunsmoke, he also appeared in Adventures of Superman, 1952, and Lawman, 1958, but these were merely brief supporting roles. Still, he clung to acting with unwavering passion and was beloved by local theater groups around La Cañada Sunland for his gentle personality and dedication to the craft. Even close to death, Selk tried to stay involved with the Foothill Curtain Raisers theater community as a way to hold on to the stage lights one last time. George Selk took his final breath on January 22, 1967, in Montrose, California, at the age of 73, buried quietly with the mourning of a few old colleagues. His net worth at the time of death was only about $200,000 USD, a modest number that reflected a long but little-known career of a supporting actor who lived fully for art until his very last breath. Victor French as Eban Lucan. Victor Edwin French was born on December 4, 1934, in California. When he joined Gunsmoke in 1966, he was just 32 years old, portraying Eban Lucan, a rough man but with a hidden kindness. The character was loved for his large build, deep voice, and a face tinged with sadness, making him both intimidating and sympathetic. But Victor French's life behind the camera was far from peaceful. He went through 2 failed marriages, leaving him with the burden of supporting 3 children while working on an exhausting, relentless filming schedule. The stress of providing for his family and the pressure of fame pushed Victor into smoking as a toxic coping mechanism that clung to him for many years. Just as he seemed to rise again with the role of Mr. Edwards in Little House on the Prairie in 1974, and later shining in Highway to Heaven alongside Michael Landon, Victor was secretly battling his smoking addiction, which was wearing down his health day by day. In 1989, tragedy truly struck when Victor was diagnosed with advanced lung cancer while filming live-action scenes for Rock-a-Doodle in Dublin. 3 months of fighting through chemotherapy and pain could not save his body, already ravaged by decades of smoke. Victor's passing left even Michael Landon, his closest co-star, choked with sorrow for a talented but deeply unfortunate friend. Victor French took his last breath on June 15, 1989, at the age of 54, leaving behind an estimated net worth of about $1 million USD, a modest amount compared to his brilliant career, but enough to support the 3 children he always held close to his heart. The tragedies behind the Gunsmoke cast are not just stories of loss, but also reminders of how fragile life can be, even for stars who once shone so brightly. Which of these tragedies haunts you the most? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow along for more emotional behind-the-scenes stories from the world of cinema.